Welcome to an Achieving Science video. This video is all about our understanding of genetics. Gregor Mendel was an Austrian monk, whose work became the foundation of modern genetics. This was way before the discovery of chromosomes, genes and DNA. He was very much interested in how characteristics were passed on through generations of plants. This work is known as inheritance. He carried out numerous experiments using pea plants in his garden. Let's have a look at the experiments he carried out. In experiment 1, he crossed two pea plants, one of which was tall and the other one was a dwarf. He found that all of the offspring were tall pea plants, so he wondered why. Well, then he carried out a second experiment, where he used two of the offspring, which were of course both tall, and crossed them together. On this occasion he found that 3 of the offspring were tall and 1 was dwarf. Well, this was strange because both of the parents were tall. How could suddenly we have a dwarf pea plant? Well, he began to explain this, and he explained it as height was a factor that was determined by separately inherited hereditary units passed on from each parent. Each unit is passed on unchanged from both parents, one from each. One is dominant and one is recessive. We can see this via a genetic cross. Here we've got the capital letter T being the dominant allele. We've got the tall pea plant shown at the top, both having 2 dominant alleles, and the dwarf pea plant using a lowercase t showing the recessive alleles. We can now use these to see what the offspring would have. We can see the first genotype is heterozygous, where they have 1 dominant allele and 1 recessive allele, and this is the same for every single offspring. Because all of the offsprings have the dominant allele for being tall, all of these pea plants would be tall. In experiment number 2 then, where we use these offspring, where they possess both the dominant and recessive allele, we can therefore now look at the offspring. On the first occasion, the first offspring would have 2 dominant alleles and therefore be tall. The second offspring would have 1 of each and be heterozygous, but because it possesses the dominant allele, would also be again tall. The same for the next one. The final offspring, though, would receive 2 recessive alleles. As it's got both recessive alleles, this pea plant would be different. It would be a dwarf pea plant.